The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
You're listening to the Sports Scramble podcast, where four friends serve up a weekly plate of sports with a side of SEC bias. Now, here are your hosts, Chet, Jacob, Wade, and Tyler.
Let's go!
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of the Sports Scramble podcast, brought to you by Belly Up Sports. I'm your host, Chet. We've got Tyler and Wade, and we have confirmation that Jacob is coming on at some point. We just didn't want to wait any longer, so we're starting it off. How are y'all doing? Y'all had a good weekend?
Yep, had a fun-filled weekend, a couple of drafts and a couple of live shows that we did talking football. So it's finally here. No more talking season. It's strictly business now.
Exactly.
Now we get to figure out if Tyler was just hustling on us this whole time with his fantasy football corner, and did he reveal his true picks, or did he follow the guide? I think he did. He was a straight shooter.
I think Tyler was authentic to us the entire time. So if you followed along, you hopefully you had a good draft. We had our draft last night, and we'll wait before we get into that in hopes that Jacob can join us, because he was drafting. He wasn't on the Home Depot forklift this year. He was able to actually sit down in front of his computer and get it done. We had some draft mishaps. So folks, if you haven't joined your fantasy league yet, make sure you join it an hour before the draft. Shout out Chris that we had to draft for him while he FaceTimed it. We had a whole production going on to get that started. And if you're the commissioner, turns out you could pause the draft and draft for people at the same time. So keep that in mind. But Tyler, you said talking season's over. It's time for football. We had week 0 last week. Not much going on. The closest game, I think, was the Vanderbilt and Hawaii game, which we'll get into that a little bit. We got week 1 coming up. Of course, we're all excited for LSU's big matchup against Florida State. We all are hoping it goes differently than last year. Then, of course, you got the Homer Wade with his South Carolina and North Carolina Duke's Mayo kickoff. We're going to start that conversation up with Duke's Mayo again, so we can get to that Duke's Mayo Bowl.
We got so close. We got to their DMs.
They followed us on TikTok and on Twitter. We were DMing a little bit. But I did make the promise, if they bring us out, I will get a bucket of mayo. Maybe I said a truckload. I don't really remember. I'll have to go back and watch.
You're gonna volunteer that new truck of yours?
Not my truck. I will take one of their trucks, so they can dump it on me if it gets us on the sidelines for the Duke Mayo Bowl. So if you're in the chat, let us know what you would rather dumped on you. Would it be mayo, ketchup, mustard? Give me another condiment here, guys. What's getting relish? I don't know. What else you got that be dumped on you?
Relish would be pretty bad.
Yeah,
it like get up in your ears and stuff. I mean, ugh. What about I
think mayonnaise is still probably the worst though.
Yeah,
maybe like tartar sauce. That'd be worse.
Oh, that would just be gross. Some tartar sauce
or cocktail sauce. Either way.
Okay. I'm gonna stick to mayo. That's it. Nothing else is getting.
Hey, speaking of mayo, did you see Will Levis is now got a commercial or like sponsorship deal with one of the mayonnaise companies because he puts mayo in his coffee?
Yeah,
that is disgusting.
That's too far. And this one's for Lyndon. How about cottage cheese?
Yeah, no, that's gross.
Comment if you would like to be doused in cottage cheese.
Yeah, no, Lyndon used to do the cottage cheese and like pineapple chunks out of the fridge back in college. Yeah, I'm going to get a text here.
My wife likes it, so I don't know.
I've used cottage cheese to like make stuff, but I put it in a blender and blend it up and like make it like a blended cottage cheese. I'm not just scooping it out of the container where it's all chunky. I'm getting nauseous just thinking about it. But who did get nauseous was the Vanderbilt football fans. So we might as well just jump right into college football. Thinking they were going to come out and just destroy Hawaii. Well, they didn't even cover the spread. I don't remember what it was. I think it was 6. Maybe, Tyler, you remember off the top of your noggin?
I think it was like 17.
Yeah, it was 17 and a half.
Goodness. Well, they only beat them by 6. They almost lost with a onside kick. Hawaii was inches away from recovering. The guy actually recovered it, but his foot was out of bounds. So I was gonna say if Hawaii won, you just swap them. You send Vandy to Hawaii, and Hawaii stays in Nashville, and you that's how you play the SEC this year. And of course, we had USC and San Jose State. The defense for USC was pretty much non-existent in that game. What you think, of Caleb Williams, Tyler? You think he's back for high part two?
I definitely think so. I mean, if you looked at some of his plays, there was that one play where he fumbled the snap and he threw a 70-yard touchdown pass. So, I mean, it was against San Jose State. San Jose State is in the middle of the pack of the Mountain West. And I literally told Jacob on Coast to Coast, I want USC's defense to not give up more than 20 points. And what do? They give up 28 points. So I think this is what's going to be the ultimate knockout punch for USC not making the college football playoff this year. I'm seeing so many people so high on them. But haven't they not forgotten about the Washingtons, the Utahs of this conference? So I think that USC definitely needs to be on alert, especially when they face Notre Dame, face Washington, Oregon, all those tough teams. So USC's defense better get their stuff together.
As you can see, Jacob is now in the show. We were talking about mayo and condiments. Jacob, what is a condiment that you would want dumped on you besides mayo?
Hard-hitting question as he joins.
Yes, we ask the hard-hitting questions here on the Sports Scramble. Honey mustard.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I
I
don't
would have said
know.
It would smell good.
over that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think
Cane
I'd stick with
sauce?
the mayo. Cane sauce. I bathe
Oh,
on that.
Yeah, that's just mayonnaise.
Chick-fil-A sauce.
Chick-fil-A
Some
sauce.
Chick-fil-A sauce. There you go, Tyler. Bless you in the Lord's chicken.
Keep my mouth
Just open your
open.
mouth.
Make
Yeah.
Tyler
They
a
came out with the
Polynesian
new
chicken
sand-
nugget.
They came out with a new sandwich today.
They
Yes,
did.
they did.
What?
The pimento cheese sandwich.
Really?
Yeah.
Anybody had it?
No.
Nope.
Is it like a fried chicken sandwich?
It's
with
still
pimento
like a
cheese
fried
on
chicken
top,
sandwich.
or-
It's just got pimento cheese and like a relish
Jalapeno?
of jalapenos and pickles on top of it.
Yeah, I'll
Wow,
pass.
okay. That
And then
sounds
they
phenomenal.
also, I think it's a spicy chicken sandwich too. But you could
Oh
probably do
my
it on
goodness.
normal.
Okay. I'm going to Chick-fil-A tomorrow. Hold on, I'm writing it down. Pimento cheese. Yeah, I'll definitely be getting that. I don't know if they got it out here in
Your
Central
bowels
Texas.
might be regretting that, but it's good.
It'll be all right, Tyler. We'll power through it. Just like USC's defense did not do. Fletch, what'd you see from the Trojans out there? Caleb Williams winning the Heisman?
No, I don't think so. It's just one of those things where, and Tyler referenced it. We talked about it a lot. I just wasn't wowed by USC, especially them being placed at the number 6 spot at the beginning of the season. They did not live up.
Seemed high.
Did not live up to the number 6 spot, at least defensively. So I think they have a lot to go back to the drawing board and look at. They've heavily relied on their offense. So I think this is the year, and especially going into next year, where defense is going to be the number one priority, I think, at USC, because if they can't get defensive recruits, they're not going to be able to recruit against the Big Ten when it comes to defense. So they have a lot to live up to on that side of the football. Offensively, they're okay. They can win football games, but if a Power 5 team can go out and stop them, very well, they could be out of the Pac-12 race in their final season there.
Well, I mean, Alex Grinch must have some like blackmail on what's his name, Lincoln Riley down there, because there's no way he should have been the coach or defensive coordinator after last season. Wade, you're the defensive expert here on the show. I mean, do you think USC should have joined the Big 12 and not the Big 10 with the way their defense has been playing?
Well, I think as a part of this college football realignment, we're going to lose that regional feel to the sport. I don't think we're going to think of the Big 10 as a defensive league. We're not going to think of the Big 12 as a shootout, late night Pac-12 shootouts. I know they're down to 4 teams now, but
Pac-4 after 4 a.m.
I just think it's going to be less regionally focused because you got rid of the regions. And I think that the style of play will change as well, because recruiting is going to be more national than it already is. And I think teams are going to have to adjust to play different styles. And likewise, some of the Big Ten teams are going to have to ditch the I formation, dual tight end offense, and spread it out kind of
Right.
like USC does. So it goes both ways. But yeah, I think USC's got to shore it up defensively, but it's not necessarily because of the conference.
You mentioned the recruiting, and I just kind of thought popped into my head here. Do you think it's going to be tough for the West Coast teams that are joining the Big Ten to land some recruits? I would think some of these players might not want to make that cross country travel every other weekend. I mean, is that an impact you think on anybody's mind?
No, I think they're
They're
getting paid
following the dollars.
They're getting paid
Okay.
the big bucks to travel across the country, so who really cares?
Mhm.
No, I think they're probably glad that they're playing in the Northeast for the most part for the end of the season. I think once you get into late October, November, going to Michigan State in Penn State, Rutgers, places like that, Ann Arbor. Let me tell you what, it's going to be a rude awakening for the teams that aren't used to the cold weather. They will
Talk about
get
a home field
destroyed.
advantage.
Mhm.
Yeah, they will
I
get
think
destroyed.
who is it? I saw yesterday. I can't remember. Somebody has Penn. It might be like USC and Penn State next year is like late October. Like that's going to
Hmm.
be a rude awakening for the Trojans.
It's
And
next year's
imagine if they do the
whiteout game,
whiteout
so
in that game.
it is.
Whew.
It's going to be next year's whiteout game, I'm sure, because of everything that's happened there with the bowl games between them and everything. So I think that's definitely going to be an interesting game. Just because I don't think they're going to be able to play in those weather conditions.
Yeah, you're gonna have to put them inside and just crank the AC down to get them used to it. Let's go across the pond. I guess Ireland's across the pond. Notre
That is what
Dame,
they say.
Navy. Wait, is Notre Dame legit this year? I mean, they destroyed Navy, but let's be honest, Navy's strong suit isn't football. What'd you think from the Fighting Irish?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's tough to take too much away from this game, but I do think in the last year of some of these traditional conferences, Notre Dame as the independent could just sneak their way right on into the playoff. I mean, if they go undefeated with the schedule they have, nobody's going to tell them otherwise. I mean, they're in.
One seed if they go undefeated with that schedule.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
mean, they
mean
have.
they've got Ohio State coming up at the end of September. They play USC, Clemson. I don't know if Lake Forest is going to be anything this year, but I just named 3 top 10 teams. So
They're not going to do it, but I'm just saying the path is there. I think this is a 2 or 3 loss team because of that schedule, but they have everything on the line, and it was a good start. I think Sam Hartman, they might have beaten out Alabama to get his services. Rumor has it. So they
I
got
mean, he's
something
got
up
his
their
rib
sleeve.
attached to his jersey or something. I mean, I don't
Yes,
know what he's
in
got
the
going on over
freezer.
there.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think he's wearing it as a necklace.
it's too early to tell, but they got a lot to play for.
I think
Well, we need
like looking at Notre Dame, especially, I watched that entire game from beginning to end. Running
just
wise,
locked in on the Irish.
I was probably because
He
I
was
screwed
locked
up
in
my
all right.
bet
The
in week
idiot
0.
mistakenly placed a bet that Navy was going to cover the 21
Oh,
points.
that's a bad
I-
bet there.
Oh, now he
Fudge.
really
I hit-
believes in
my
Notre Dame.
goodness.
I hit the button to the left of the one I actually wanted to hit.
Oh no!
Yeah, so that happened. Like, and
That's
I
why you
looked
gotta
at that
take
in
your
like the
cash to
third
the
quarter.
And then he
casino.
was like, "Oh, let me redo my bets." And then first
Oh,
game,
my
automatic
God!
loss.
I've got a rant for that one.
Let's
No,
just betting
but
woes. Let's hear it.
I Notre Dame. I just think that everybody has this giant. Everybody lives in fantasy land with Notre Dame, in this land of, oh my God, they have potential to be a 2-loss team and potentially sneak into the college football playoff. It's never going to happen because Notre Dame is never going to beat Ohio State. They're never going to beat. I'm sorry, they're not going to beat USC this year because USC is just going to outscore them at the end of the day.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if the defense doesn't stop them. The offense
It
is going to
really
overpower
it,
them.
it really doesn't matter. So in looking at Notre Dame's defense, it really wasn't all that good, to be honest with you. I mean, Navy just didn't capitalize on plenty of opportunities that they had to score. So I think that really this game is a wash for the most part, other than looking at Sam Hartman potentially being a B- fit in South Bend. I don't think he's going to be an all-out Heisman contender at the end of the year. I don't think he's any better than what Ian Book was for Notre Dame.
Insults.
There's just the only upside that they have is they have 2 running backs who could potentially win them 8 games. I don't think
Yeah,
that
that running back was scrappy. I mean, I know it was
yeah, that
Navy's
dude is a
defense.
dog.
Yeah.
outside of that, they have no top recruiting wide receivers for the most part. Their tight end is just a big dude at the end of the day, and Sam Hartman just targets him left and right. Teams will double team that and take full advantage of it. There's something with that team, with Marcus Freeman running that team, that they need to figure out a new game plan, because last year I told Tyler point blank, I have like 4 games into the season, I said this team could be a 4-8 team at the end of the year, and they were terrible. So into them being ranked 13 to start the season is
They're
way
always
too
overhyped,
much.
though.
That's way too much. It's like the Texas A&M crap. It's the same thing over and over again. But yeah, I don't see them having what people think is going to be a New Year's 6 bowl season or whatever. I don't think that can happen. Not with what I saw.
Well, I think if Notre Dame wants some respect, they've got to join a conference. I think game changes when they join a conference. I understand they got the team, but the strength of schedule is so. I did read off they play 3 top 10 teams, but that doesn't mean they're going to win those 3 games, right? I think the respect aspect changes. If they want to get in the playoff every year, they got to join a conference. And if you win your conference, that changes things. You mentioned Sam Hartman was a B- player. The man's looking like a 10 out of 10 up there in South Bend, though. I mean, can we talk about his hair? I mean, the dude was like fresh cut, looking great over there in Ireland. So, and he wears his rib around his neck. I mean, he's a catch up there in South Bend, Jacob. You compared him to Ian Book. I'm not here for the Sam Hartman slander, but I don't think he's a Heisman contender.
Look, a 6-year quarterback in South Bend is never going to be the answer. I just don't think that's a thing. I don't know. It's hard to believe that Notre Dame would be a top 10 team at the end of the season, knowing what's behind them. Like you mentioned, for them to join a conference. Yeah, I think looking at it in the grand scheme of things, think about them playing Ohio State. Okay, if Ohio State loses to them, that loss really isn't that bad at the end of the day. They lost to an independent school. They're
That's
not
true.
considered a huge Power 5 team. It wipes away basically everything what that loss stood for. So sure, Ohio State has no problem playing Notre Dame. Of course, that's why they have top 10 opponents, because those top 10 opponents know, okay, fine, we can go to South Bend. Could this be our 1 or 2nd loss of the season? We're okay at the end of the day. I don't think that the college football playoff committee, God rest their souls, that they really critically weigh that loss, if that is to happen, heavy on Ohio State. Them going to South Bend and losing to a team that's not in a conference. If they want to join the conference, go to the ACC. Just complete it. Get it over.
They eventually
Just
might
go to
have
the
to.
ACC.
I think they're going to have to. I mean,
Multiple
or
sports are in
need
the
to form their own
ACC.
conference.
Their football is not in the ACC.
Is football the only one that's not in a conference?
There's a few, but
Pretty much.
basketball is considered the ACC.
I didn't even know Notre Dame had a basketball team.
And they have a bunch
I'm
of other
serious.
sports.
Every time I see
Baseball's
Notre
considered
Dame
the
football.
ACC. I don't understand why football, and it's solely because of, number one, it's because of donors. Football has been the long favorite sport at Notre Dame for such a long time, and they don't want to see their team crumble under the conditions of playing in the ACC.
Butch is calling out the Notre Dame boosters, the football team, the athletic director. He wants all the smoke. If you're in the comments, let us know if you think Notre Dame makes the playoffs, and if so, what seed are they going to be? And if they don't make the playoffs, what do you think their record's going to be? I'm going. They probably finish 9-3. I mean, but I don't think it's definitely not a playoff team in my book. And if you're in the comments, hit that subscribe button, because Tyler puts so much work into our videos every week. You want to make sure you stay tuned to them. I mean, other week 0 games, we had Futch's rant on Notre Dame. That seems like it's a constant every year, right? Tyler, you have anything to add to Notre Dame there before we get to our new segment we got coming up?
I love the passion for it. I'm glad that Jacob is definitely back on the show. If you want to catch more of that too, coast to coast, you can hear his rants
Yes,
over
like
there.
all the shows.
Over there too, but I think that Notre Dame finally has a legitimate quarterback. You're comparing him to Ian Book. I don't think he's even close to Ian Book. I think he's better than Ian Book. I know it was Navy. I'm not really going to be like, oh, they beat Navy 42-3, whatever the score was. They're going to be a top 5 team the rest of the way. But I do think that they will compete with Ohio State. They do have, top 10 opponents have to face Clemson. They have to face USC. You look at those two teams, Clemson with Cade Klubnik, we don't know his question marks there. And then with USC with their defense. So I think that if they go 2-1 during that stretch, I could see them being an 11-1 team. But I think realistically, they're a 10-2 and 9-3 team. And it would not surprise me if they end up in the New Year's Six. If they get through those 3 games, the rest of their schedule is not that bad. So I think that Notre Dame with Sam Hartman, he gives them another opportunity to not be a one-dimensional offense that we're so used to Notre Dame being for, it feels like a decade it's been.
So I'm going to go on for a little bit with my camera off because it seems to be frozen with a creepy ass Joker smile. I'll get that fixed in a second, but let's get to week 1 games. We're not going to go through all of them, but let's start with Florida and Utah. Wade, what do you expect to see out of the Gators here against the Utes?
I expect Florida to kind of come out flat. I mean, I just don't think Graham Mertz is really the answer. And I think Utah is – I don't think they're going to win the Pac-12 this year. I think probably 3rd or 4th in that conference. But it is a veteran bunch, and they play extremely well at that stadium. So on a Thursday night to start the season, I still feel like Florida's in preseason mode, and they're not going to be ready for this one. I think Utah wins a lower scoring game, probably like 27-14 or something.
Okay, Jacob, what are you thinking?
Contrary to popular belief, I don't think Utah's going to be ranked in the top 25 at the end of the season. Here's why. Number one, Cam Rising is injured. Everybody knows it. He's been injured for 2 years for the most part. Same injury over and over again. So you don't have a quarterback at 100%. He will probably not play that game, more than likely. Because from what I've seen, he's not ready and heard he's not ready to go. And their backup quarterback was hurt in the preseason and training camp. So they'll potentially be running with a backup quarterback to start the season against Florida. I think it'll be a close game. The only thing is, Utah hasn't lost a game at home in how long, Tyler? I don't remember.
It's
how long.
a tough
It's been a very
environment
long
to play in.
So I think it's going to be interesting for Florida to score the ball because Utah's defense, I don't think, has missed a step. I still think that they're a good defensive team. Offensively, I think is where Utah's going to struggle to compete with Florida. I don't expect it being more than a 21-17 or a 21-14 game at the end of it all.
All right, sorry about that. I'm still working out these technical issues. Tyler, do you think Florida even scores? You were mentioning pre-show that you had some doubts on them.
Yeah, I definitely have some doubts on them. I mean, the last time we saw this same Florida team on the field, they only put up 3 points against Oregon State defense. That I think it is subpar to what Utah's defense is going to face. Kyle Whittingham is known for being a defensive guru. Even if Cam Rising isn't on the field, I just don't have any faith in this Florida offense. No more Anthony Richardson. Graham Mertz is going to be the starting quarterback now for them. And ETN is going to be their running back. It just feels like an offense that's going to rely heavily on the run game. And I think this is a do or die year for Billy Napier. I think that Gainesville, you've seen it in the documentary and you're going to see it in real life. They don't care.
They'll chew people up, man.
If you're going 5-7 and 4-8 in back-to-back years, you're gone. I don't care how much you're making. You're out of here. So I think that Florida needs to get off to a hot start. I just don't see it, especially this is a different environment. Wade and I were talking about it. No more humidity that Utah has to deal with. They're like, what the heck is this? They're going to be playing at home in front of their home crowd. I think that I agree with Wade. I think this is going to be like a 27. I don't even see 14 points for Florida. I think this is going to be like a 27-3 type of game. It's going to be a low scoring game because Florida's defense wasn't that great last year. So even with Cam Rising being out, I definitely think that they're going to rely heavily on the running game. And I just don't see Florida sweeping this series. So I think that Utah gets the best of the Gators this time.
You know, this is the Urban Meyer Bowl, right? This is where Urban Meyer was from.
Yeah, that's where Urban was originally. Do you think he'll be at the game, or is he going to have like a heart condition going on and not going to be able to attend?
I could see him being there on a Thursday. If it was a Saturday, maybe not.
So, looking at some other games for the week, a lot of cupcake teams, but we got North Carolina, South Carolina. We mentioned it earlier, the Duke's Mayo Classic. Wade, you're picking your Gamecocks. Why is that?
I am. I think that South Carolina honestly should be outright favored in this one. I think that it's going to be a shootout. I think that Drake May is definitely better than Spencer Rattler, but the UNC defense gives me a lot of worry and room for concern. And I think that Rattler and Juice Wells can stretch the field, and I think South Carolina can go blow for blow with Drake May. And ultimately, I think that the South Carolina defense will come up with a critical stop that UNC is not capable of coming up with.
So you're going with that Spencer.
I'm going with the Garnet and Black attack.
I like it. I think they pick up right where they left off. But it's going to be tough with Drake May. I mean, he's like second on the Heisman list. Or actually, the next
second on the draft
we're going
board.
to talk to. Yes, Jordan Travis and Jane Daniels were ranked number 2 and 3 on a preseason Heisman watch list, which we're going to get to LSU and Florida State. Futch, I want you to tell us why you think Florida State will win, even if you don't.
Jeez. If Florida State wins, it's because Florida takes full advantage of LSU secondary. I think that they have big receivers, and the issue is Jordan Travis can throw the ball up pretty much anywhere in a one-on-one coverage and rely on his guys to get it down. I think that was pretty evident.
Well, when you got a wide receiver that's 6'7" and
right,
the tallest,
and that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. So I mean, there's not much you can do with that. I think that for Florida State, it's going to be they have to play balanced. Can't rely too much on the run of the pass. Kind of play. It's weird to think, but they have to run the ball more than you think. I think if you start throwing the football, LSU is just going to spread it out, take up the field, and that's kind of what LSU's done in large part with their secondary when they've had holes. Is force them to run the ball as much as possible, keep it on the ground. I'll be interested to see how LSU secondary handles it. I've thought about it for the last few days, and I've really wondered, what are they gonna do? Like if somebody's to throw the ball deep, who's back there that's gonna stop a guy?
Got Mitch Bird's back there, baby.
You know what I mean? No, but I'm just saying, are they going to be able to stop that? And also, if Jordan Travis decides to roll out of the pocket and run, what are they going to do?
That was the issue last year.
You know what I mean?
What they're going to do, and I'm going to go full LSU homer right here. Of course, Tyler and I really broke down the game. Bayou Bengal.
Here we go. Everybody
coming out
relax.
Thursday.
Get ready. Here it comes.
So, Jordan Travis going to roll out of the pocket. You know who didn't play in week 1 last year? Goes by the name of Harold Perkins Jr.
He played. He got a 15-yard penalty that was critical in our loss.
He played like 3 or 4 snaps. All right, doesn't matter. He's going to be all over Jordan Travis come Sunday night. And then, of course, cornerback, I understand that's a concern, but it's LSU's DBU for a reason. They're going to have these guys coached up. Your 6'7" guy, that's a matchup nightmare, right? So he might be double teaming him. But I think in the grand scheme of things, Brian Kelly ain't going to let it happen 2 years in a row. I was going to let Tyler kind of break it down, but he went into very good detail on Bayou Bengal Bites. So you got to tune into that one. Tyler, you get the next game I'm about to mention. But I think the key to kind of take away from Florida State winning, LSU's got to spread the ball around and throw it deep. They got to stretch the field, You got to establish the run game to bring those safeties in, and you stretch the field with Jane Daniels. Everyone says his arm's improved. His game's totally different. Let's see him put up or shut up. He's got to prove it come Sunday night in Camping World Stadium, which, by the way, you got like 3 NFL stadiums around there. Why not just play in one of those and not Camping World Stadium? I mean, what is it, hold 40,000 people?
Because it's a
closest
Sunday
to
night.
Disney World.
Yeah, but the NFL's not playing next Sunday night.
Yeah, but somebody's going to be playing there in the next couple of days, and I'm sure that
They'll be all right. They'll figure
staff
it out, man.
doesn't want to have
They'll
to
figure
fix
it
the
out.
field after the fact. Just look
Yeah,
at
they got a
Kansas City.
tropical
They
storm
fixed it.
barreling that way. So
Yeah.
They do have a tropical storm coming in. Tyler, next game, Duke and Clemson. Who do you think comes out victorious in this one?
if you're looking for an upset alert week 1, it's this game. I think that Duke, this is like probably the most scariest game for Clemson to get going. I think that I'm not too worried about Clemson's defense. They're going to be one of the best in the ACC in the nation. I do have my worries of Cade Klubnik. It feels like Clemson fans are trying to say like, oh, he's like the best quarterback in the country. Well, you said the same thing about DJU, and look at him now. He's at Oregon State. So I got to see it. You know, Will Shipley is going to be coming back. One of their receivers have to step up. They got to make a big-time play because Duke's got a guy named Riley Leonard, and people are going to start to know his name. He can absolutely sling the football. Their head coach coming off of a 9-win season and a bowl win. So Duke right now is a 13-point dog. I would not be shocked if Clemson, at the very least, if you're looking at the half, you look down at your phone, it's like 14-7. Clemson leads at the half. So I think that especially on the road, it's a tough environment, every tough environment in the ACC. But I think that Duke is one of those dark horse teams. Everyone wants to talk about Florida State, North Carolina, and Clemson, but I think that Duke is slowly making their way up.
Watch out for the Blue Devils this season. All right, well, we got a new segment bringing you live for this college football season. Here we go.
It's time for Building Dat Bankroll.
Cha-ching is right. We got 4 picks to help you build that. Shout out who dat, New Orleans, feel me? Build that bankroll. We're going to start it off with Tyler. What's your pick to help our listeners build that bankroll? Well, Tyler, hold on. You're muted. Hit us with your picks now. Oh, you muted yourself, Tyler. Got to try one more time. Hit it one more time. There we go.
Well, the intro was playing on my screen, so I don't know what was happening. So to win you some money this week, and hopefully you can win some money because I haven't been able to win a single bet with my fellow partner, Jacob. I'm going to go to the group of 5.
Don't tell the people that, man. Don't tell them that.
The group of 5 always treats me right. A bold pick wants me to pick South Alabama to just win this game, but safe pick, I'm going to go with the over of 2 potent offenses. Michael Pratt on one side, you got Bradley coming back, 2 experienced quarterbacks. So I think that this is going to be an offensive shootout. Wouldn't surprise me. This is like a 34-31 type of game down there in the Big Easy. So with 52 points being the over, take that.
Okay, so the over in South Alabama Tulane game. Wade, what do you got to help the listeners out here?
I'm putting my money right here on the game.
Okay. All right. He's got the bag of change. Is that how
I'm
much
going
you're betting, or
77 cents on the South Carolina money line. I think that the Gamecocks can take it outright. You get positive money. Plus 115 last time I checked. If you take South Carolina to win outright, they're 2.5-point dogs. I never like to take the line on 2.5 because, I mean, a field goal could gyp you at the end of the game. So I think South Carolina can do it. I mean, we talked about North Carolina's lack of defense. I think you got 2 hero QBs. And I think South Carolina is just a little bit better at the skill positions and
you got Spencer Rattler, man. I mean, it's Spencer Rattler. Like, come on. You heard the rattle in the change jar. He's going to be making you some money. Fudge, you got a best bet for the weekend to help build that bankroll?
Yeah, hopefully I can actually get something this weekend. My one this weekend that I feel 110% sure about is definitely
110.
Yes, 110% is Boise State on the road at Washington. I have Washington covering the 14.5-point spread at home because they are my underdog pick for the Pac-12 championship.
I like Michael Penix. I actually picked him to win the Heisman in that Belly Up article that came out a couple weeks. So go on over to bellyupsports.com and search for
Washington's my
the college
team.
football preview. I like Washington out of the Pac-12. Based on what we saw from USC last week and their defensive woes, I don't think they really have much of a chance anymore. So I'm going the Florida-Utah game. Y'all, we kind of previewed it earlier. Cam Rising most likely not playing. Florida, I don't even know who their starting quarterback is. I don't know where he came
Graham
from.
Mertz.
Graham Mertz.
Yeah, him. I don't.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin.
Okay. I mean, Florida is known for their defense, but the past couple of years it's been down. I'm taking the under in that game. It's set at 45.5. I went back and forth on it. When I thought Cam Rising was playing, I had the over, but now that it's looking like he's not going to, I'm hitting the under to help build that bankroll. So we got 4 picks for y'all. Make sure you get your bets in before Thursday morning, actually, because that's when the Florida game comes out. And then you could maybe parlay them. I don't know what the parlay odds are going to be. Maybe we'll look at that. We did the parlays last year. I think we hit 1 out of 12.
Yep.
So hey, well, that's positive money there, right? So I think we'll just put these out as individual bets. Bet at your own risk. Bet responsibly. They haven't released it yet, but I'm sure we'll have a DraftKings code come out with Belly Up Sports here in the next couple of weeks. So that's our college football talk for the weekend. Of course, we are hyped up as it gets to get into week 1 coming up in a couple days. Let's throw it over to some NFL news. As you can see in the ticker that's rolling down below, and both their heads are cut off. Sorry about that, but we had to show Wade and Fudge. Josh Jacobs ends his holdouts, signs a 1-year deal with the Raiders. Wade, he's your guy. I mean, was this the right move for him, or should he have tried to get traded somewhere?
I mean, I think everybody was looking at what Saquon Barkley got paid and considered that to be the line of fairness in running back compensation. Josh Jacobs was in line to get, I think, 8 or 9 million. So it was a nice little bonus for him to get to 10 million. I think the issue with Jonathan Taylor is he's still on that rookie contract, and the Colts are like, hey, we don't want to pay this guy more than $2 million because that's all we're obligated to do.
Yeah, he
so
didn't really
for
have
him
much leverage there.
Yeah, I mean, no leverage for him, and for the team to give a disgruntled player another $8 or $9 million just doesn't seem like the right move for this team. I think that they're definitely rebuilding. Hopefully Anthony Richardson is their guy, but I think they would be best off trading him to a contender and just stacking up on draft picks that they could use to build next year's team.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough for Anthony Richardson. You got a young quarterback, right? And you kind of want to rely on a veteran running back, if you could call Jonathan Taylor that, to kind of take some of that workload. But that's what my next question was going to be. I mean, I think Jonathan Taylor is going to get traded. It's a matter of where. Tyler, I've heard Miami is the front runner. Do you agree with that, or do you think it's going somewhere else?
I'm going to go to the NFC. I think that Philadelphia is going to just throw the bag at Jonathan Taylor. If you look at, I know that they, got Rashad Penny and DeAndre Swift. Those aren't, 2 guys that blare out you. If they need really a 3-down back, not really go through towards like Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. Don't get me wrong. Those are 2 quality guys, but getting a guy like Jonathan Taylor, Jalen Hurts, that would just be a potent offense for what they already have. So if they're really all in, if they want to win the Super Bowl, I mean, the NFC, this is really their opening, because the NFC is pretty bad. They got the 49ers and the Eagles, and it's pretty much who else is going to be behind them. So I think that the Eagles, if they want to ultimately beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, I think that JT is their guy.
Man, Jalen Hurts and Jonathan Taylor. That would be a rushing machine. I mean, just throw out the speed option and just run that every play. Hurts won't even have to throw the ball. I mean, do you think it happens soon, though, before the season starts?
It's got to.
It has to happen by tomorrow for him to be eligible to play at the start of the season.
And if
not,
I
also think it's going to be the Eagles as well.
Well, you think it's going to be okay.
Yeah, there's like multiple different deadlines because he's also on the physically unable to perform list, so he can't.
He's got the back issues, right?
Yeah.
Issues.
It's not just a trade issue, it's that too. But yeah, I think he goes to the Eagles because they were looking to upgrade it. Running back DeAndre Swift hasn't really taken over that running back room. They got him for pretty cheap around the draft. And the fact of the matter is Jonathan Taylor wasn't available, so they didn't know they could get him. This team's all in. They're clearly the best team in the NFC. They got to continue that mentality and just stack up on weapons. And if it means cutting Rashad Penny, I mean, I think we'll look back and laugh at that.
Big
It's
loss?
not that consequential.
Yeah. Futch, you were shaking your head on the Dolphins. You think it goes to the Eagles as well, or you got someone else in mind?
No, I don't think the Dolphins are an option. Also with the Eagles, I don't know how much money Jonathan Taylor's asking for, but whatever amount of money it is, it's too much. I think he should have to sit his rear in Indianapolis for being an idiot. So I just think it's stupid to look at Saquon and think that all of a sudden you can get all this money and it's
You have one
readily
huge
available
year. Yeah.
for all running
There's a
backs
volume
throughout the
gap,
league.
really.
It's not going to happen. So the Eagles have $13.8 million in cap. So if he wants any more than $13.8 million, the Eagles don't have the money unless they're going to get rid of somebody, which I don't think they're going to cut anybody from their 53-man roster before tonight. So like it's
I got to by tomorrow.
So, you know,
But
it's one
would
of those
Taylor
things
take a
where
pay cut in a good situation?
No.
If he wants to
God.
win a ring, yeah.
God, no.
I don't think
After
he will.
he stood behind and everything about all of this money and everything, it would totally overshadow the fact that if he went to the Eagles, it wouldn't be about the money. So I don't think that at the end of the day, it is about money. I mean, let's be
you ain't
real.
getting beat up for
Who
free,
really,
that's for sure.
who really cares about you getting beaten to a pulp in Indianapolis as long as he's getting paid? I mean, look, that's most of the guys in the NFL. Let's be real. So I think to me, it just doesn't make any sense. I can't even think of a logical place for that guy to go to other than to sit up there all fall and winter long and think about the mistakes that he's made rather than being in the backfield and playing football. I don't understand. Look, if you go to the NFL, it's because you have dreams of playing in the NFL and you want to play football. It's not about making 30, 40, 50 million dollars giving, handing the pigskin to you in the backfield and telling you to run north. I don't understand that. So I think you should have to sit. I don't disagree with anything that anybody has said regarding him staying in Indianapolis. I mean, they've allowed him to go seek trades, but honestly, who is going to pay that much money for a guy who had one good season?
That's the thing. I don't think he has the leverage like Saquon did Saquon has had multiple good years and he had the injuries. I get that, but JT had one good season. He's on his rookie contract. Like, dude, just play this year in Indianapolis, ball out like you can, and then let your game speak for itself. So
could you imagine a guy like Bryce Young at the end of the season if somehow the Panthers are above 500 by the end of the season, which I don't think anybody in the NFC South is going to be over 500 at the end of the season. But
wow, hating on the
No.
But if
I will say
So-
right now, I'm sticking by at 11 wins for New Orleans.
oh
I
my
hope
god,
so.
it makes me sick.
Keep your receipts. I'll wait till the end of the season.
So, I've got them all.
45
I've got
minutes.
'em all.
Quarterbacks
on
know
August
they're getting
28th.
paid. Like
Let's
Joe
just
Burrow
say-
knows he's about to get 350,
But Joe
380
Burrow has
million.
gone to a Super Bowl, a conference championship multiple times. Jonathan Taylor had
Okay,
one
Justin
good
Herbert
season.
has made the playoffs and blew a 28-point lead and got the bag.
I think
Running
he's
backs don't
overpaid
get
as
paid.
well. And
Yeah.
that's just a fact of it. But the
Thank
thing
you.
is, Derrick Henry, yeah, he should be paid. I mean, look at what he's done. But I think Jonathan Taylor's asking for it too soon.
Yeah,
He's had one
what
good
Derrick
year.
Henry's done. The Titans haven't made it anywhere. They haven't
but he
gone
is their team.
anywhere. They don't
He
know
is
how
their
to get
team.
out of Nashville.
Let's just agree that the Colts and the Cardinals should combine into one really, really
But
bad
the Cardinals
football team.
are already tanking. They cut Colt McCoy. Joshua Dobbs is going to be their starting quarterback. They're
cut
all in on
Colt
Caleb
McCoy?
Williams. Yeah,
Yeah.
they cut
What?
him. Yep.
I almost drafted Colt McCoy last night.
Oh, wow. Why?
We'll get to our fantasy here in a second. Quarterbacks. CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and Anthony Richardson, all named starting quarterbacks. Who would have saw that coming, right? And then Trey Lance traded from the 49ers to the Cowboys. Futch, is Dak on the hot seat?
No. Trey Lance ain't worth a darn as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Well, they stretched.
Jacob's taking the under on
Shanahan-
every single take today.
Yeah,
Look,
he
if
wants
Shanahan-
Jonathan
opposite.
Taylor to go sit in a corner and stare at a brick wall and play football.
Yes,
While
you
while
do.
watching Notre Dame
You're gonna be an
highlights.
idiot. If you're gonna be an idiot and you want all that money for one season, like you're never gonna get it. I'm sorry, but going back to your question, I don't see why he's gonna pass Dak in
I just think is that
Dallas.
on a short leash. if
No,
he
God,
sucks.
no. He has dinner with Jerry Jones every night. Who cares?
But
it's-
Dak didn't even know they were trading for Trey Lance. You see that the coach, what's his name, Mike McCarthy, and Dak came out today that Jerry Jones made the call himself and brought him in, and he showed up in the facility, and Mike McCarthy was like, "Who'd we just trade for?" He
But
had
isn't
no
Trey Lance
idea.
still third string?
yeah. The thing
Yeah,
is,
you got
yeah,
what's his name that played.
They
half
didn't
the
cut
season.
Cooper Rush.
No, yeah,
No.
Trey Lance is sitting there third string.
That's
So
why I
what's
said
the difference
he's
for
not
him?
going to. He's not going to compete at all. The reason Shanahan got rid of him in the first place is because he saw that a guy who was drafted last had everything that he
Money.
needed in all the intangibles, and he could pay him less money than a guy who they drafted early in the draft who hasn't produced
third
at
pick.
all and is hurt half the time. And that's why Jimmy Garoppolo is playing in Vegas, and I'll be surprised if he makes it through the entire season without getting hurt. I just don't like everything that the 49ers had at quarterback was a liability. And now you've sent all of your liabilities away, and
Except
they've
for Brock Purdy.
basically started off from square one. I mean, it's one of those things where if Dallas wants to get to a Super Bowl, it's either going to be Dak Prescott or they're going to have to go get a veteran quarterback in order to do it. There's no other way that you're going to get a second or third year guy in there to take you to the Super Bowl or wherever you want to go in the great beyond in Dallas.
I think
You know
Dallas.
who
has the
else
best
called
chance
in
of
on Trey
getting there
Lance?
their defensive play. Go ahead, Wade. Who called?
You
in
know
on
who
Trey
else
Lance?
called in on Trey Lance? The
The
Bills.
Vikings.
No, the Vikings decided not to. It was rumored, but the Bills and the Cowboys got in an arms race for him, and the Bills only offered a 5th round pick, and the Cowboys offered a 4th round pick, so he could have been that close to being Josh Allen's backup. So
I guess
What was the entire trade?
it was just a
the
pick.
4th rounder.
It was a 4th round pick.
That
for Trey
shows you
Lance.
what he's really worth to
That's
teams
what I'm saying,
in the
is
NFL.
like
Well, he hasn't even
He's
seen the
not
field.
worth
The
this.
49ers
Nobody
haven't
saw him
given
as a
chance,
starter.
or he's been hurt.
Yeah, I mean,
They
it was
thought
a
he was gonna be a
stretch when
starter
they
last
drafted
year.
him. Yeah, he started one game, broke his ankle. Him going to the Bills probably would have been a pretty good insurance policy for Josh Allen, considering how physical of a player he is if something were to happen. But yeah, I mean, he's third stringer in Dallas. It really, which I don't know if you can call him a bust because you never saw him play. He goes out there and he gets hurt week 1. I mean, he's unproven in my eyes. He never really got a shot. That's all I'm kind of saying. So I don't think he ever will if he stays with Dallas either, unless Dak and Cooper Rush both just suck the trash out of Dallas. At that point, I mean, Dallas wants to make it to the playoffs and win a Super Bowl. They're gonna have to ride that defense, in my opinion. Tyler, you ready for some fantasy football?
Yep, I'm gonna pull it up on my screen here and try to present if my internet/computer would allow for. All right, let's see if I can do it. All right.
All right, let's
Why don't
see
you
it. We
stall
got
while
the
I try and
fantasy-
pull? All
I
right, here
will
we go.
stall for you, Tyler.
Here we
The
go.
Fantasy football corner.
All
brought
right.
to you by Tyler.
All right, so
You got to
we
share
got
your
two
screen
part-
though.
What?
Oh, hold on. There we go. Now we're cooking.
All right, so
what
we
do
got a two-parter here for the fantasy football corner. First part is going to be our top 5 fantasy breakouts, and then we'll get into our draft. So the first one being, we got the quarterback breakout of the season. There was many candidates. I almost went with Trevor Lawrence, could have went with Lamar Jackson, but in the end, I went with Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert was the talk of the town heading into the last season. A lot of people were high on the Chargers, including myself, but it just wasn't the season that we all hope for Justin Herbert. But I do have faith in this Chargers offense. They added Quentin Johnson through the NFL draft. They added Kellen Moore, a guy that I think is going to spread out the passing game here. I do think that Mike Williams and Keenan Allen will both be healthy. That was really what tore down this Chargers passing game. That's why Austin Eckler had such a great season last year. Austin Eckler was the number one receiving guy for Justin Herbert last season. I think that's ultimately going to change. I do still think that Austin Eckler is definitely going to be one of a viable fantasy running back. But Justin Herbert and Kellen Moore is going to spread the football more. It would not shock me if he's the leading passer right up there with Patrick Mahomes. I think that this is going to be one of the pass-heavy offenses, especially with the top two guys being healthy and adding a guy like Quentin Johnson this season. So that is my quarterback breakout. Let's go on now to the running back breakout. This is a guy that I've been talking about for many, many months, ever since we started the Fantasy Football Corner. And that is a guy I think is going to be unleashed this season. No more Ezekiel Elliott stealing so many carries from him. I think that if you look at the depth chart behind him, Deuce Vaughn, I know that Deuce Vaughn has been having a really good preseason, but I don't think that he's going to be much of a threat for Tony Pollard. I think that Tony Pollard is going to be a 3-down back for Dallas. And it's not like Dallas is a bad team. I know that we were just talking about Dak Prescott. I think he's a viable quarterback. They did add Brandon Cooks into that offense. So there's going to be more guys taking, the top quarterbacks off of him. So, look at Tony Pollard. His 40-yard dash was a 4.52. And I think that he's shown his elusive speed. Tony Pollard is one of the best pass catching backs, and especially in PPR. I think that right now ESPN has him ranked as the RB6. I also had him as the RB6. It will not shock me if he finishes in the top 3. I think that there's really no competition around him. And you really look at the fantasy football landscape for running backs, there's not really many of those bell cow guys anymore. I feel like Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, Tony Pollard is about only ones there. So he's pretty much a dual threat. He can definitely be an effective rusher and also be an effective pass catching back out of the backfield. So I'm all in on Tony Pollard this season. Another guy I'm all in on is the New Orleans Saints lead wide receiver, and that is Chris Olave. Chris Olave, we saw at the beginning of the Fantasy Corner that he was going in round 5, but now that a lot of people either been watching the show or know that Chris Olave coming off a really good rookie season. That rookie season, he only missed 2 games. If he doesn't miss those 2 games, he wins Rookie of the Year. Garrett Wilson ended up winning that award. But, the quarterback upgrade is there. Last year they were dealing with a quarterback carousel between Jameis Winston. Winston played like 1 or 2 games and then got hurt. And then we saw Andy Dalton. Now they have Derek Carr. You always saw the connection in game number 1. I think that a lot of people are going to focus on Michael Thomas and Chris Olave. Is this fully going to be his fully healthy season? Even with a fully healthy Michael Thomas, I do think that there's enough target share for Chris Olave. But say Michael Thomas goes down, Chris Olave ultimately shoots up. And, looking outside of that, Rashid Shaheed is also another guy. But I just feel like Derek Carr's favorite target is going to be Chris Olave. There really isn't many other pass catchers, too. I do think that Chris Olave, with Alvin Kamara being out for the first 3 weeks, I think that Olave, look at the Saints schedule to start. It's one of the most easiest schedules in the NFL. I know it's one of the easiest, but it can also be challenging too. So I think that Chris Olave, there's really not many guys around him that can really steal his targets. So I think that Chris Olave, if you see his receiving touchdowns right now, I think that he gets to 10. I think that this is going to be an insane season for Chris Olave. There's a lot of other wide receivers that I really like, but I think that the value getting Chris Olave in round number 3 is just too hard to pass on. And now let's go on to the tight end before we get to a bonus breakout. My favorite tight end this season look at is Darren Waller. Waller had an upgrade this offseason, going from a Raiders offense that stunk it up last year to now the New York Giants offense. I think that's going to be one of the most underrated offenses in the league heading into this season. You look at the pass catchers around him, not really many guys. Isaiah Hodges, Jalen Hyde, I think is going to be the wide receiver 1. But if you're really looking for a wide receiver 1, I think that Darren Waller is going to be that guy for you. It just feels like he's going to get most of the targets. Would not surprise me if Waller finishes as the most targets on this team. You have Saquon coming out of the backfield. Saquon will do his fair share, but there's just not really many wide receivers. We haven't really seen a wide receiver step up since, the Odell Beckham days of the New York Giants. So I think that Darren Waller, he was dealing with some injuries in the past 2 years. We haven't really seen that breakout season since 2019. So it just feels like he's back fully healthy. I think that Darren Waller, with an offense that doesn't really have that go-to pass weapon, I think that Daniel Jones is going to look to him. And if you want to look at the projected 4.2, I think that's an easy over. I think that he gets 5 or 6 touchdowns this season and gets a lot of targets and a lot of he's going to be a PPR machine. I think that everyone wants to talk about Kelsey, but I think that Darren Waller, I think he's going to finish as the number 3 tight end right behind Andrews and Kelsey this season. So let's get into one more bonus breakout, and we're going to go to the wide receiver position. Jahan Dotson. You're really looking at the Commanders' offense right now. Terry McLaurin is dealing with a turf toe injury. There's some question marks of whether or not he's going to be available for the Commanders' Week 1 game. We do know the starting quarterback is going to be Sam Howell. We've been going through the quarterback carousel here in Washington, which feels like quite some time. But Sam Howell, look at his tape from North Carolina. He's been doing really good in the preseason. So very similar to Darren Waller's situation in New York. Jahan, you look at the other wide receivers, Curtis Samuel, he's getting over age 30. Terry McLaurin, he's definitely going to be viable. Well, I think that Jahan Dotson is going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Washington Commanders. If you looked at every preseason game, Jahan Dotson scored a touchdown in 2 of them. So Sam Howell has looked to Jahan Dotson early and often. So I think that Dotson, if you're looking at any Commanders wide receiver, he is the one to get. So those are my top 5 breakouts for the corner this week. And then we're getting closer to the season, so we're going to get to some more starts and sit-ems.
So I don't know if it's a bold strategy, right? But I think Tony Pollard finishing as RB1 at the end of the season. That's what I'm predicting here on this August 28th brisk summer evening. I think, like you mentioned, he's the bell cow now in Dallas. We saw what he could do last year, even with half his carries to Zeke. I think he's going to overtake CMC, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley. It's going to be the Tony Pollard show down there in Dallas. And you mentioned on the Giants, Jalen Hyatt as a wide receiver 1. Tyler, he wasn't drafted in our league last night. Should I drop someone on my bench and go pick up Jalen Hyatt right now that could stash him?
Not quite. I think that could be a guy, Jalen Hyatt. If you're looking at, if you're sitting at 500 and just looking for a guy, I think that Jalen Hyatt, you've seen his elite speed. I saw him in a 1v1 versus Sauce Gardner, and he burnt him. But it was a backup quarterback. If Daniel Jones was in there, he would have made that throw and would have been a touchdown. So Jalen Hyatt, we saw his big explosive season last year at Tennessee. If he can do that, again, I think that it's pretty much an open competition. Who is going to be that guy? I think that Darren Waller is going to be the lead guy, but who's going to be that wide receiver to step up? I think that your main guy to look at is going to be Jalen Hyatt.
Okay. Well, you mentioned it, and I mentioned it. We had our draft last night. I want us to maybe mention our teams here. Are we happy with them? Are we mad with them? Let's start with Futch, who wouldn't join the FaceTime call until like round 10.
He's being
Futch,
secretive.
are you happy? Are you happy with your fantasy team? Let the viewers know what it's looking like.
Yeah, I'm happy with my fantasy team. The reason I didn't join the draft was because I was making, like Wade said, some sneaky selections, and I didn't want the guys.
You don't have
in
a poker face. Is that what you're telling us? You can't hide.
Yeah, I
You
don't.
can't hide your picks.
No,
We
I
put
can't.
Krish on the spot, man. He had to give us a dissertation about every single pick. So
Yeah,
That's tough.
but that was a whole other situation there.
That's really tough. No, I like my team. I mean, at quarterback, I picked up Josh Allen in the 3rd round, which is beyond me. Or the 4th round. I think it was the 4th round. I picked up Josh Allen, so it's pretty late for Josh Allen. So
I got Jalen Hurts in the 4th round.
A big point getter for me. Also picked up Travis Kelce pretty early on.
That was round 1, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, that was round 1. I was just going for a guy that I know is going to produce points. So I think the one position where I'm kind of iffy at, and I'm going to probably monitor, which I normally do every season, is running backs. So I've got 2 backs right now. Ramondre Stevenson is my RB1, and Miles Sanders is my RB2. The reason I think Miles Sanders is probably a good pick, and I think Tyler can back me up, is that I don't think Carolina is going to throw the ball very much. He seems to be their only running back that's going to be able to produce at a high level. So I think he's going to get plenty of touches, especially in a PPR league.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Miles Sanders wasn't really used right in Philadelphia. And I think that Bryce Young, he's going to get a lot of dump offs. Rookie quarterback. I think that Miles Sanders is going to be the 3-down back. Chuba Hubbard is their RB2. I think he's going to come in at times, but not really be too much of a threat. So I think that Miles Sanders is definitely a great value there. That's you don't really get much of an RB1, whenever you enter that RB dead zone that I've been talking about. So I think that Miles Sanders is a great pick.
All right, Wade, what's your favorite pick from last night? Who are you most excited about on your team there?
I think my favorite pick was having Devontae Adams slip to me in the 3rd round, and to be able to pair him with Justin Jefferson. I mean, I just feel like that has potential to be the best 1-2 punch at wide receiver, and that was really my strategy. Was as soon as we made the switch to full PPR, I voted against it, but y'all wanted to have it, so I went 4 wide receivers, or I guess 4 of my first 5 picks were wide receivers. I snuck Saquon Barkley in there as well, so kind of coining Tyler's term, I went with a hero RB with Saquon.
That's not my term.
Then,
I mean, people use it throughout the community.
Nope, Tyler, you coined it. Just go with it.
I like it.
It's
I
all,
hadn't heard it until you said it. But I surrounded it with tons and tons of wide receivers. Now they all do have the same bye week of week 13. So
you just went all in on it.
That's unfortunate.
Take the L right before the playoffs.
And guess who I play?
You're there. Who do you play week 13?
Tyler.
All right.
Well, that might be a playoff battle there.
So there's your payment for all your fantasy football advice.
Yeah, you get the free dub week 13.
And by the way, people, we it worked out that we have all Sports Scramble openers. It's Tyler versus Chet and me versus Jacob. So that'll be pretty cool. But yeah, I just went around the pass catchers and got my favorite tight end, Darren Waller, as well. But I don't have any risk because I was able to get Dallas Goedert as well. So I felt pretty good at tight end.
Before we get to the fantasy football expert, I'm gonna go my team.
Yeah, you go ahead. I'll give you the floor.
I was happy to snag Jalen Hurts. I think round 4 or 5 is when I grabbed him. And then you mentioned the 1-2 punch of Jefferson and Hopkins. I've got a 1-2 punch of Jamar Chase and Garrett Wilson. So
That's
I think Garrett Wilson is primed to have a big year against or with what's his name, Aaron Rodgers out there, as long as he stays off the mushrooms. And I grabbed Alvin Kamara probably a little earlier than what I liked, but we had a bunch of Saints fans in the league, so somebody was going to take him. So I'll stash him on my bench there for a few weeks. I said Hopkins. You have Devontae Adams. I'm sorry there, Wade. I have DeAndre Hopkins. So we throw him. We'll see what he does in Tennessee. And who I'm most excited about on my team, my kicker, Young Hoku. I got him back, baby. He's going to be worked into the naming of the team. I haven't come up with it yet, but Tyler, let's hear the fantasy football expert. What's your lineup looking like?
Yeah, I think that my lineup is going to be carrying running backs. I did not really go into the draft that was thinking of going RB to RB. Through all the mock drafts I've done, I've gone RB, a wide receiver, but I'm pretty happy that I went in double RB because I still got my guy, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think all the talk is about Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, but Jameson Williams, who knows if he's going to play this season? I know he's suspended, but we haven't even seen him in the NFL yet. So if you think that Jameson Williams is going to take any targets away from him, it's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. Top 2 running backs, you talk about a 1-2 punch. You can't get any better than this. Christian McCaffrey and Tony Pollard, these 2 guys stay healthy. I could see them being top 2 running backs.
That's literally 1 and 2.
Yeah, you got then I got T. Higgins as my wide receiver 2. I pretty much punted tight end. All the tight ends that I really wanted were gone. But my favorite pick was Lamar Jackson. This was a guy that I almost put as my fantasy breakout quarterback, but I didn't want you guys saying like, oh, he picked him, so of course he's going to go with his breakout. But the man's paid. Todd Monken is now their offense coordinator. If you've watched Georgia's offense and what he did with Stetson Bennett, he's going to do the same with a guy like Lamar Jackson. I thought about it with Joe Burrow.
Bennett's older than Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what he could do with the younger guy?
Yeah, and I thought about getting Joe Burrow and completing a stack with T. Higgins, but I wanted that elite upside in the rushing game with Lamar Jackson. So I took him right after you took Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I mean, and also for the listeners, this is an 8-person elite
Yeah.
fantasy football minded league, so that's why the quarterbacks slip a little farther than they typically do. But no,
Hey, I put
got high
rivalries
hopes.
aside. I went Trevor Lawrence
You
at
did. You put
QB.
your Clemson.
And I also
I put
have
my
the Cook
Alabama,
brothers
Oklahoma
on my
hand aside.
bench.
Well, I do have Odell on my bench, so I'm hoping LeBar starts targeting him early there, Tyler, and maybe I'll work him into my
Hope so
lineup.
too.
So that's the fantasy football. Of course, we'll check in each week, kind of just see how our teams are going. Like Wade said, we got an all Sports Scramble Week 1 matchup with Tyler and I facing off, then Futch and Wade facing off Week 1. So we'll let y'all know how that tunes out. Let's get to everybody's favorite segment. Who got that dog in him? That dog in him. It's a fan favorite. It's one of our favorites. Let's get it started with Wade. Who got that dog in him this week?
All right, I'm gonna go with Marcelo Zuna from the Atlanta Braves. Highly controversial, the designated hitter for Atlanta, but his bat was not controversial at all. He hit like 450 on the week with 4 home runs, and I think 10 RBIs. So very good week for Mr. Marcel as the Atlanta Braves are dueling it out with the Los Angeles Dodgers trying to get that 1 seed in the NL playoffs. And honestly, both teams probably have 2 of the 4 MVP candidates as well, with Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman on the Dodgers, and then Ronald Acuna and Matt Olson on the Braves. But guys like Eddie Rosario and Marcell Ozuna have been the difference as of late, helping the Braves continue their really, really good season.
Okay. I like it. Back to the MLB baseball, or I guess just baseball.
Before it's all football for 5 months, one more.
I was speaking of baseball real quick. Did y'all see that tweet I sent y'all? It was like, I guess, AA team. The umpire got ejected.
Yeah, I was confused at what happened.
Him and the player were, full on screaming at each other, and looked like the umpire shoved the player a little bit. But they threw the umpire out of the game.
I guess that's
I've never seen that before. Yeah, I think that should happen in all sports. If you screw up and you make a terrible call, throw them out. The umpires and the referees, they can get ejected now. All right, back to who got that dog in him. Futch, what you got?
For me, let's go to the little tykes. I'm gonna go with Lewis. I think it's Lap. I think that's how you pronounce it. Hitting the walk-off homer to win the Little League World Series.
Okay,
that
I didn't see this.
That was awesome. That was clutch to see. And he hit it a country mile. So yeah, just one of those things where some of these kids have
they
so
need
much
to move
power,
the fences
and I'm
back a little bit.
Yes, they need to move the fences.
What
back.
is,
I want to see some.
The field size?
It's like 220 to center.
I think I could probably throw it out of center.
They need to bump it. Like
And some of the kids are like 6'4".
Yeah, this kid is huge. This kid's. I'm probably looking up at this kid. He played for a team in California, so
okay,
it was a team in California won. So yeah.
Well, Tyler,
it was pretty wild.
Since I got robbed, I'm going to agree with Matt. I'm going to go with my boy Tim Jones. He scored a 75-yard touchdown for the Jaguars, and it is 100% locked that this man is going to be on the 53-man roster. So Tim Jones, dogging him since I got robbed.
And Matt Jones figured out YouTube comments. So
Let's go. Matt Jones also with the dog. Double dog.
Yes. Matt Jones, he gets the honorary dog of the week for it.
Yep. Matt Jones, how do you feel about your 3 kickers that auto-drafted for you?
I texted Matt this morning and auto-drafted 3 tight ends, and he's got Deshaun Watson as his backup.
Oh, that's what it was, 3 tight ends.
Yeah. My dog of the week, throwing it back to 2013. I had to check the calendar because Jimmy Graham caught a touchdown for the New Orleans Saints, and it wasn't just a touchdown. He mossed the dude on the way to the end zone on the previous play. So he's really pushing for that roster spot. I think he'll make the roster, and I think he'll be probably used primarily in red zone packages. So my dog of the week is Jimmy Graham.
If only he would have dunked it. He fake dunked it.
You saw he did the little fake dunk.
Yeah.
I thought that was good enough.
Screw the
for,
NFL for that sorry rule.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think
Bring
I
the
think he
cell
just
phone
takes his
back.
time. Yeah, the Joe Horn cell phone, get it out from underneath the field goal post.
Saw that live.
But yes, you did. Let's, if you're in the comments, let us know who your dog. Be like Matt Jones. Figure out how to work YouTube comments and let us know who your dog of the week is. And I gotta pull it up again. I love his who got
You
that
can
dog
hear
in
him
him.
read
You
it.
want to know who's got that dog in him. I'm going with Tim Jones. So I love it. I mean, he gets all it. He texts me that every week. I have to read it. So now we have it on the comments. So let us know who got that dog in him. Before we get into our NASCAR Neil segment, I've got something I wanted to bring up real quick. We've been talking a lot of sports documentaries. You had Swap Kings that really let us all down on Netflix.
It wasn't that
Johnny
bad. Calm
Manziel.
down.
It wasn't. It was good,
It
but
was
there was a
hyped.
lot
It was
left.
hyped.
There was a lot left untold. Which, if the documentary is called Untold, you figure
That's the
all
whole
would be on the
point.
table.
They're leaving
Exactly.
it untold.
Johnny Manziel was pretty good. I saw one today. I heard about it on a podcast. Didn't realize it was out over on HBO Max. It's called BS High. We all remember Bishop Sycamore back in, I think it was 2021.
Well, that's a clever name.
Yeah, I know. That's
Yeah,
what it
there's a
was
lot of
called
BS
on the
going on.
TV.
That's why they.
It was literally on the TV. It said IMG Academy versus BS High. I mean, that should tell
He
you
was
right
like,
there.
it's right there for the,
Yeah,
I wasn't hiding it.
exactly. Coach, I think his name was Roy Johnson. He was kind of the center point of it all. He didn't produce it, so it was not biased at all. It really painted him. I mean, he's a grade A narcissist in my mind, full on con man, total fraud. There's 30 lawsuits out against him right now. Just a little. I'm not going to ruin the show. It was really good. It's about an hour and a half on HBO Max, or as they call it now, the Max. He's got 30 lawsuits out against him. He never paid a single bill for meals or for hotel rooms. He would push the payments off 90 days, and right before that 90-day notice hit, the whole team would move out and go to another hotel room.
Oh my gosh.
And they would be, if they didn't, they'd be served with eviction notices from every hotel or apartment they were staying in. He would call supermarkets right when they open and say, "Hey, I need 30 rotisserie chickens," right? He wouldn't go pick them up. He'd pick them up at dinner when they'd been sitting out all day and they had to mark it down to $2 a chicken. So he would get the deals on the chicken and then bring it back to the team to feed them for dinner. I mean, it was just terrible. Like they had no food. They were making some sort of concoction every day for lunch. I felt really bad for the kids of watching it. There was no schooling going on, no equipment. You had 20-year-olds playing against
Yeah, you
high
said kids,
schoolers.
but it's like 25
Yeah,
year olds.
I mean, it ranged. They said, "Well, were you a high school or a prep school?" He goes, "Well, we were a hybrid, a high school and a prep school." And then it cuts to the reporter that investigated him, and they said, "That's literally not legal. The state of Ohio says if the day a child or I guess a teenager turns 20 years old, no longer a teenager, they can no longer play high school football." It then cuts back to the coach. He says, "Where is that a law? It's not written anywhere. It's literally in the Ohio High School Football Association bylaws." So I mean, there was just a lot going on. It was pretty wild. But he actually another thing, the school stole the kids' social security numbers, took out loans in their names to pay for all of the money that they owed. So
Oh
they
my
asked for the
gosh.
kids. He had 3 PP loans taken out in his name. He had no idea. $20,000 each. So he owed $60,000 to the federal government for that. And when they asked the coach about it, he said, "You think I would trust the federal government with my money? I hate the federal government." But he still was taking out loans in all the players' names. Of course, he had domestic abuse cases against him. He was going through court during all this time for that. And then my favorite quote of the show was when they asked, "How do you feel about committing all this fraud to against these players?" He said, "What are you talking about? Legally, I didn't commit any fraud. I just hang out in the gray area." And then he walked off the screen. I was like, "Are you kidding me, man?" Like, you got to watch it. It's honestly, I know he says they're coming back next season. They got 7 teams lined up to play them. They got kids enrolled in their school ready to go. So be on the lookout for the BS High. I give it great reviews. It was a really good documentary. They really put him on the spot. They didn't pull the punches, the producers. So, Wade, I expect your full review next week when you throw it up on HBO Max.
I'll
So,
report it.
let's get to favorite segment here from NASCAR. Neil, we had some scary times this week in NASCAR. He wants to start off by saying thank you and how thankful he is for all the safety improvements in the sport the last 22 years, preventing which would have been one of the most ugliest nights in NASCAR history. A relatively boring stage one, mostly side-by-side racing with both lines fading to coming back at their own times. Truex gets the stage after Harvick bailed on Hamlin, killing his momentum. And stage two started off with them going 3 wide and staying that way for most of the stage. This is something we have not seen much in this generation of car, but it's welcoming to see as it makes super speedboat racing much more exciting. The last lap of stage two came out of a four-turn bad bump from Seabell onto Gibbs in the high line, causing a massive wreck.
The wreck was crazy.
Collecting a large part of the field. This was the first one. The safer barriers, shout out Safer, did what they were created for on a hard impact from Blaney. After the wreck, under a red flag, the 6 does donuts onto the backstretch due to fire and manages to get it to go out. With the stage end, Martin Truex Jr. clinches the regular season championship after missing the playoffs last year. So Neil's guy is back at the top of the NASCAR championship series. Where was I? This is his second time winning it, the other being 2017 when he went on to win it all. The group of mostly Chevys and Toyotas pit first in stage 3. I felt like that was a dig at a Chevy car. But they were not able to get a lead on the second group and blended after 4 laps. With 6 to go, the number 41 car gets turned. This is what you're talking about, Wade. Gets turned, rolls over, flips, and manages to get out of the car and walk away.
I didn't think he was going to.
Yeah, no. They did bring him to the hospital. He was released that evening and is doing okay. The race went into overtime, and Boucher, I don't know if he told me how to say that name. I don't know if I'm still saying it right. Boucher, gets win number 3, being pushed by his teammate and owner Brad Kay. Roush is officially back. Bubba Wallace gets the last playoff spot by a repeat winner winning this race. Playoffs start next Sunday with the famous Southern 500 at Darlington. Neil's finals 4 predictions for the playoffs are Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, William Byron, and Cruz Boucher. That's his new name. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but that's what it is. Well, guys, that's all
It's
I got
like
for
Ricky
this week.
Bobby.
Exactly.
Ricky
That's like
Boucher.
Ricky Bobby and Bobby
Ricky
Boucher mixed
Boucher.
together.
Y'all got anything else before we send this one into the stratosphere?
Don't think so. I think we covered it all. Looking forward to our fantasy football matchups in 2 weeks, but we got college football this weekend first.
Yeah, make sure you crack a cold one open and spend your entire Saturday sitting in front of the TV. You have the Sports Scramble excuse to call out of work if you have to work Saturday to watch week 1 of college football. With that, I think we might be coming to you a little later or maybe earlier in the day on Labor Day if we can all get corralled next week. So stay tuned for that. If you're watching on YouTube this far, we appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment, your favorite part of the show, favorite segment, if you're going to ride with us on the bets. But with that, we'll see. Hope everybody has a great week and keep it going on the bankroll.